You can support this channel by checking out the awesome deals on wrestling gear in the links of the description of this video. Thank you for the support. Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fair Fight Wrestling Podcast. My name is Theron, and I really appreciate you checking out our brand new series, Fantasy Booking. This is something that I do on a daily basis in my head, and I thought, hey, why not make it its own series on this channel? And I love hearing other people's opinions. So this is just my thoughts of some really cool fantasy booking that I'd like to see, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinions as well. This week, I'm going to start off this series talking about Kurt Angle. Everyone's anticipating that day when he finally gets into a rivalry with somebody, when he finally has had enough with somebody, and we get a match. And I think there's some really good possibilities. I'm going to try, at least in this episode, to keep it realistic, okay? There's a difference between fantasy booking, I'd love to see Kurt Angle versus Okada, or I'd love to see Kurt Angle versus Andre the Giant. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between like fantasy booking and realistic, could actually happen fantasy booking. Let's start off with some of the more realistic could happens, and I think probably the more realistic one that could happen is Braun Strowman. Somebody who's been dominating Raw, destroying people all over the place. Kurt Angle, as a general manager, keeps trying to stop him, trying to rein in that monster until he's finally had enough and said, you have to be put in your place, and I'm going to meet you in the ring. And I think that would be not only an amazing match for Kurt, but an amazing further elevation for Braun Strowman. Kurt would win, but it would definitely help Braun get up to that next level. Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles. I understand we've already seen it, but we haven't seen it on a WWE stage. And admit it, there's a level there that changes things once you get on that SummerSlam or WrestleMania or Survivor Series stage. And Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles would just be absolutely spectacular. I'm not going to discredit any of the matches they had in TNA, but imagine them at WrestleMania with someone like Arn Anderson as the match agent, right? So it would be an amazing thing to see. All right, let's talk about Kurt Angle versus Seth Rollins, and I think this would involve a heel turn again for Seth Rollins. You don't need to. In fact, I'm going to be doing a podcast here soon on this channel in this series talking about faces versus faces. But I think that it would play out better if you had someone like Seth Rollins going up against Kurt Angle as that heel, as that antagonist, and this would be an amazing match. This would be a lot of back and forth, a lot of aerial moves, getting Kurt Angle back into those moonsaults again. This is all fantasy booking. I want him to be healthy, but I think a Seth Rollins versus Kurt Angle match would make for some great promos, some amazing in-ring ability, and honestly, that boost that Seth Rollins needs to get back up to where he once was. Oh, speaking of promos, imagine Kurt Angle against Kevin Owens. Forget the match. The match could be 2 minutes long for all I care. Imagine the storyline. Imagine the promos that these two could cut on each other. Kevin Owens, in my opinion, is top notch. And I think that someone like him running down Kurt Angle, picking apart his past, picking apart the things that made Kurt Angle who he was and the difficulties he went through to get there. Kevin Owens, it would be just prey for him, only to be then squashed by Kurt Angle in a match. So you get the highs and the lows there. You get that high of Kevin Owens just running him down, and then you get him in the ring, and then all of a sudden Kurt Angle just destroys him. Not to say that the match quality wouldn't be good, but it'd be that awesome story of somebody running his mouth for months to finally be shut up in the middle of the ring, and Kevin Owens is the perfect guy for that. A match that I would personally love to see is Kurt Angle versus Finn Balor. Number one, because we've never seen it. Number two, Kurt Angle said himself in an interview that was one of the guys he'd love to work with. And imagine the in-ring quality. Forget the storyline. Now, don't get me wrong, I love storyline. In fact, the very point of doing this particular series is talking about stories, because without the story, you just have a match. For the same reason that Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar last year at SummerSlam didn't really work that well, because it just felt like a match. There wasn't a whole lot of story that went into it. This particular one, I wouldn't care. You could just tell me, hey, WrestleMania, Kurt Angle versus Finn Balor. They're not going to touch each other. They're not even going to look at each other until they get into that ring. And the anticipation for that match wouldn't even need a whole lot of storyline behind it. It's very rare to come across two guys who could pull that off, but I think those two could do it and would meet and exceed everybody's expectations in the ring. And then finally, all right, I kind of lied. I do want to do one just quick fantasy booking of Kurt Angle versus Goldberg. I wish that Goldberg was still around just for one more year to see that match. I don't think we ever did see it. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't think Kurt Angle was around during Goldberg's first WWE run. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if those two have actually been in the ring together at the same time, but this could be something that could be a 4-minute match, the exact equivalent of what Lesnar versus Brock was at WrestleMania. Hard-hitting action. Doesn't even matter who goes over, even though I think no matter what, Kurt Angle will win his first match back. But I think the story of, if these guys have never been in the ring together, to say like we've had these two monsters who have dominated WCW and dominated WWE to finally come together, never face each other before, and have an awesome, intense physical match. So guys, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you would love to see in a fantasy booking scenario for Kurt Angle. Remember to hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe so you can see all the content from this channel. I appreciate you checking this out today. Thanks again, guys, and I will talk to you soon.